I think it's very easy to use tech and social media to go after kids are over fat, they're obese, no one's moving, they're on a screen. And everyone's just talking past one another.
Yeah.
But no one's like, well, why do they exercise anyways? Like, why don't you go after that?
Hey, fitness friends, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and this is episode number 118. I get to talk to James FitzGerald and Jeff Martin again, but this time together. So this is my first interview with more than one guest on the show, and as James described it, it is a polyamorous podcast interview. That's hysterical. So why these guys? Well, I've known them both for a while. I've known of them for even longer. James is the founder of OPEX, formerly known as OPT, and Jeff Martin is the co-founder of Brand X. And together they have joined forces to really create change in the world of youth fitness. And more than just that, but just the overall state of our youth, right? Building resiliency through physical activity. And I can let them describe what they're doing and what their vision is, but both these guys have no problem calling people out. And, James was my coach for more than a few years, I believe. Both, fitness and kind of life coach, for lack of a better term. But he calls it how he sees it. And he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers. And that's why I like having him on the show. It's great. And you get a lot of authenticity. You got a lot of honesty. And they're not afraid to, like I said, call people out. So, yeah, enjoy the show. It's really great, and I'm really excited for what they're doing, and I'm happy to be able to support it just by even having them on this show. But you should look them up and see what they're doing if you want to get involved in this type of movement. So before we get on to the interview, a couple things. If you haven't yet, please go over to iTunes, leave us a nice review, and subscribe to this show, The Future of Fitness. I really appreciate it. And if I see your review come through, I will read it, like the one I'm about to read from Anthony Blades. So, man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. The review is titled, Eric's a normal guy with a lot of info. And let's read it. So, the Future of Fitness podcast, says Anthony, is one of the best out there. Eric Malzone presents himself as just a normal guy, but he has a wealth of knowledge in the areas of fitness and life itself. He chooses guests from a variety of backgrounds to provide a well-rounded teaching. Even if you are not a fitness buff, you will benefit from this podcast. They provide encouragement for building a business, sustaining that business, self-discipline, following your dreams. Eric and his wife are nomads, ! Look up nomadic living. These are topics that affect all of people. Of course, being a fitness enthusiast myself, I do hope you include exercise and diet in your application of these concepts. Thanks, Eric, for being real. Dude, Anthony, thank you, man. That was great. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot to me. And if it helps out the show and it keeps us going, and it's great to hear from you. So I'm really happy that we're offering the value to you. And I do try to keep it authentic. I am very humbled by every guest that I have on here because, some of these people are just wealths of information, wisdom, and knowledge. And it's incredible that I get to sit and interview and learn at the same time provide value to an audience. So I feel very blessed in that. And I really appreciate it, Anthony. And before we get on to the interview here with James and Jeff, I want to mention our sponsor for this show. So this is brought to you by CertifiedCourseCreation.com. So here's the deal. You look at people like James and Jeff, they have their own online certifications. I'm not sure if they're accredited or not, but they do. And I guarantee you they're highly lucrative and they make a difference. So, if you're a fitness, health, and wellness professional, and you're out there and you're ready to stop trading your time for money, perhaps you have a deep understanding of a specific topic that you want to share and get out there and essentially build a legacy, then go to CertifiedCourseCreation.com and book a discovery call with the team. And they would be happy to start to pull this out and help you create a vision for it and show you how the whole process works from, building out the curriculum, the content, annotations with a full team of scientific writers, building out an exam, what else? Sales page, email series, you name it, soup to nuts, the whole solution to get your online accredited certification out there to the world and start producing that revenue stream for you. So go to CertifiedCourseCreation.com, check it out. And now, without further ado, let's go on to episode number 118 with James FitzGerald and Jeff Martin of OPEX and Brand X, respectively. Enjoy. All right, and we're live. James FitzGerald, Jeff Martin, welcome back.
Nice to see you, Eric.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys. This is going to sound weird, but this is my first podcast threesome. So
we'll just let that sit for 10 seconds of silence.
Yeah, we'll lose 50% of the audience.
That's good. That's okay.
Perfect. So once again, like all great podcasts, we had an excellent conversation right before that was not recorded. So no one will ever hear it. And if you guys can, so people listening, I've had both James and Jeff on previous podcasts, and there's a reason specifically why we're all three of us are on this recording today, and it's to talk about youth fitness. And you can learn a lot more about James and Jeff individually in those podcasts, somewhere around the 40-50 mark of this show. But maybe if you can, gentlemen, just give us a quick synopsis of what you do, and currently as of today is February 1st, 2019. James, let's have you go first.
Yeah, I'm the founder of OPEX Fitness. We're a global education company where our mission is to really make an impact on fitness. We do that through educating coaches as to what fitness is and helping them bring that to the market. We have an education program that helps those coaches get those principles, basically. Indirectly, I'm also involved in sport governance for fitness as a sport, and now more directly involved with making an impact on fitness at a younger age through helping those coaches help younger kids navigate in fitness.
What's the name of the organization, James, that for fitness as a sport?
IF3.
IF3, and what does that stand for?
International Functional Fitness Federation.
Awesome. Jeff, how about you, man? What are you up to nowadays?
Well, my wife and I co-founded the Brand X Method, been involved with kids in fitness for 15, 20 years. And over the past 4 or 5 years, really began to become involved with teaching coaches how to do what we were doing. And building on that, coming out pretty soon with our professional youth coaching cert. James is helping us with that. And our goal really right now is teaching coaches how to work with kids.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you guys, I think I started in the world of, we'll just say CrossFit back in 2008. And I've known about both you guys for a very long time. So it's really cool for me to see you guys working together and working on something that can really, make an impact on one of the issues with our modern society that's just not talked about enough, right? Which is youth fitness, and it's just not addressed. There's a million problems that people look at. Obviously, the media takes full control of that, but really, this is something that the deterioration of youth fitness is a big deal. And I'd be curious. I know you guys kind of gave me some insights before recording, but tell us a little bit. How'd you guys find each other? What's the vision of what you're working on now? Who want to go first on that?
I can go ahead. Cool. With the idea of, have 2 young girls now and seeing them grow up. And I have a background in physical education and a little bit more steeped in motor learning and growth and development connected to biology and physiology. And didn't really practice that with anyone but adults for a large part of my career. And as time has gone on and we've tried to create this governance around a sport, we looked out there and tried to look for systems that are currently in place that would allow coaches to kind of help navigate those kids from 3 years of age all the way up for the entire continuum. And that's how we came to a connection, was from IF3 towards Brand X to talk to them about what is that education that's in place to help coach this. And then I got more involved in seeing them, what they're about, what they wanted to do. And I think that separate previous connection I talked about from my background and my kids and trying to make an impact on fitness. And, when you say you want to make an impact, like that has to be measurable. And you also have to hold some standards to what you're actually doing when you say that. And so I see it as, with my age and where I sit in business, it just feels good to wake up and try to organize that, hence the involvement with the Brand X.
Yeah, James, you talked about measurable impact for this particular, project that you guys are working on. project, for lack of a better term, partnership, I guess. But how do you measure that impact? How are you guys doing that?
Yeah, well, the real simple way is to try to get as many coaches through the program as possible. Hopefully, they're going to be conscious enough in fitness education to pass on that information to change a generation, right? And so we measure that actually through the people that do the certification, and then helping them not only navigate principles, but how to put this into practice for society and all the shit crap that they have to navigate around, which we talked about in your point there. And, separate to that point, but the reason why I also say measurable impact, because I think it's admirable that people would talk about, trying to do something. You see it on the media every day, right? Kids reading technology, not enough activity. And it's just everyone's talking past one another, but no one wants to lay an uncomfortable fist down and do anything about it.
Yeah.
No one wants to do that. So we've become so lacking in resilience physically, but also emotionally, that we can't even have a tough conversations on, at 7 years of age, your boy and girl should be able to do a pull-up. That's an uncomfortable conversation to have now in terms of free speech and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean is what are you doing about it? Are you just talking? Are you just complaining? Are you just posting shit on Twitter? We are making an impact by actually educating coaches, putting systems in place that they're going to go out and actually measure what that impact is. And so when I say that, there's some backing to it, so that we can actually make an impact as opposed to just conversation and watching this whole generation just, fucking fall over one another, to try to get on stage to get their STEM award, but they got to breathe so hard just to grab it,
Yeah, it's and I'd be curious to hear your insights on this too, Jeff. But I feel like, when you talk about, let's talk about that pull-up example, right? Like someone should be able to do a pull-up at age 7. If the parents or the generation above doesn't have that standard for themselves, they're never going to have it for their kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so many emulating, so many things that are connected to that 6-year-old having that problem. Right.
Right.
Remember, I just used the pull-up as the proxy of measurement of physicality, right? Yeah. So it's not a pull-up. I don't know, run around the block and not fall apart. Anyways, it's a deep one. And I know, Jeff, you got some thoughts on that.
One of the things I think, Eric, you were talking about, and you talk about all the problems that we hear about on the news, and all of kids are overweight, kids too much screen time, and I think one of the things that brought James and I and Mickey together was this idea that everything that we looked at was trying to address that problem. Look, we need to deal with the fact that kids are obese. We need to deal with the fact that kids are on the screen too much. We need to deal with the fact that, and every program's dealt with that, and not with the idea that kids should play, kids should learn how to move, kids should be, that is the goal of physical education and physical activity, to expand their ability to engage in the world. The kids' fitness shouldn't be measured by work capacity. It isn't measured by how fast they can do something or how much they can do, but or in an adult fashion. It should be in how they can engage with the world. Can they do the pull-up? Can they run around the block? Can they play soccer? Can they play baseball? Can they do all of these things? And I kind of go back to when I was in school, way back in the 1960s. And I was in elementary school, and we had a PE teacher come in, and our PE teacher taught us track, taught us gymnastics, taught us, dancing, square dancing, ballroom dancing, taught us to, we played games, but the idea wasn't to get the class fit. The idea was expose the class to different things, let them find solutions for different movement problems, and teach them how to jump over do a high jump, and then let them find the best way to do that. And really, that is kind of the genesis of coming back to what we were trying to do at Brand X. And what we're trying to spread out. We weren't trying to make kids who could lift a lot of weight. They eventually lifted a lot of weight because of what we were doing. But what we were trying to do was give kids this base of physical literacy, which we felt was a more important measure of physical fitness for kids. And that equated in their teen years to athleticism. And then it equated to kids who, would walk on to a college team and make it, on a college team, would walk on, to do, to just decide that one day, hey, I want to take up rock climbing. Hey, I want to take up rowing. I want to take up this. This is a kid who's these are kids who are fully engaged and capable of doing whatever they want throughout life. And that was kind of the idea that that's what's failing. And the outcome of that is kids are overweight. Kids are spending up too much time on their screens. Kids are doing that. And kind of our talk here, when I moved to this location and I'm seeing kids outside playing. The other day I was out there, I was looking, a group of about 15 kids playing on one of the fields. They play a pickup game of football. Kids just coming up playing football. You rarely see that anymore. I was sitting there playing with my granddaughter for about half an hour on the playground. Not one time did I see a kid pull out a screen. They did no phones. That's highly unusual today. But what were these kids doing? Well, they're engaged in physical activity. They're engaged and compelled by what they're doing. And so we're walking down the street, the elementary school over here, and on the side of the building here's the elementary school, and it says gymnasium. So the community we're in prizes physical activity enough to build a gymnasium in their elementary school. Don't see that much anymore. There's an auditorium.
Yeah.
So I know that's kind of my soapbox, but the point is what we do is an umbrella. It covers all of those things. If kids become engaged, they stop playing with their phones as much. If they become engaged, we can address obesity. If they become engaged, they're safer. If they become engaged and are active, they become more physically literate. They're safer on the field of sport. So we're the umbrella over which all of those things covers. But it's more important. It is for us the basis of these kids being engaged and active throughout the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
I'm all for it. And I think, if anybody's listening to this show and they're not for that, then email me. I want to know why. Right. But, we alluded to the complexity of the issue. And I, having talked to a lot of people within the fitness industry, over the last year, especially over the last decade, I think it all starts with education, right? Which you guys are doing very well. It's a cultural thing, right? It's like you were talking about, in Phoenix now where you are, Jeff, it's culturally different, So I see a couple things, culturally, how do we start to make that shift? Right. And the other thing I've seen too, and feel free to disagree with me on this as well, is that I feel like a lot of the people who, coaches who take on kids programs or youth fitness at the grade school, high school level even, they're considered to be almost like they're expected to be martyrs. Right. Like, hey, this is a glorious thing. No, we're not going to pay you for this. This is something you should be doing. Right. So it's become very difficult at that level for people to, I don't know, maybe it's the mind shift of the fitness profession. But do you know what I'm talking about? Is that recognizable for you, that problem? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're, how we got here, I think it's admirable, Eric, that you're trying to say it starts with education or it's a cultural thing. I think that it's such a complex thing that it needs like 1,000 conversations to resolve itself. Sure. To be fair, it's not a one thing. I'll just add a couple of things, that makes people think about it is why are we exercising? You got to really think about that. And that opens the gateway to what's the intention behind the exercise, right? And with great intent of these martyrs or people for the last 50 years, they had great intent, in helping people through fitness, but they were told you do this through sport participation, right? Because sport was this opportunity to to overcome movement solutions or whatever. But now we see that's gone from the sweet spot. Of course, we kill everything, right? It's like if we're going to play it, we better play it to be elite, and then we better surround an entire culture around teaching them at age 4 how to be elite at football. You know what I'm saying? And I say that due to what's coming up this weekend, and you know, I don't know how many billion people are going to watch it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's from the Enlightenment era, whether you believe it happened or not. And we did not necessarily one day have fitness coaches. There was no such thing as education on fitness. You had to move during the day in order to survive and reproduce, right? And now we have to structure. We have to structure with intelligent design how to live so that the body is honored just as much as the mind is honored, i.e. the Enlightenment area up to today. Today, it's so cognitive driven, right? Based upon information sharing technology, et cetera, right? Who are the most admired people in the world today? It's not Arnold Schwarzenegger anymore, right? It's the intellectual dark web or politicians, right? Thinkers who sit in a chair, right? So you're not, you know, when is it going to be that the phys ed coach gets honorable mention, right? For what? I don't know. For changing an entire fucking generation of people
Yeah.
to appreciate movement,
Right.
Like how do you value that? So it's a very complex thing and all the people involved. I mean, I can't even talk. Like it blows my mind as to the shit that you got to deal with in putting out fires. But I think there has to be one like question of like, why do we do exercise in general? And I think that brings up all the shit to make you recognize the issues.
Well, why do we do exercise in general?
Most times it's to decrease pain, to lose fat, or to add energy. That's and then if you ask a 6-year-old why they do exercise, it's because mom does it, it's because it's used as punishment, or it's because it's going to make them better at a sport that they don't want to get better at.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a few percentages, right? Maybe there's someone out there's like, no, I don't do that. I tell them about the positive of movements, solutions, etc. Then, you know, we love you for that. But the 99.7% of the rest of everyone else, when they look at exercise, it's generally that, right? And just think about my point on it is like, you know, and if the intention is off, Eric, like you know, you've worked with clients before who had improper intention, right? Mm-hmm. There's no utility in that. None. And it'll come back to haunt you. Maybe in 4 years, maybe in 10, but it'll eventually burn you out. Yeah. And so if a kid at age 6 is doing movement for the wrong reasons, even though they don't have a rational thought as to why, it will end up in problems. And they certainly don't have fucking role models around them who are like, why should we, like my girls last night were out back, like, you know, you keep asking the question, why should we move around out back? And why should we do this stuff? I was like, just because we can, because we're capable of doing it. You know, it's like, yeah. but what's their question? That's based upon their mind, their thought process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's amazing to me, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too, Jeff, but how many people are prisons within their own body, right? That's the thing is like, you see people who have chronic disease, you know, way overweight, over fat, as you would say, James, right? You know, just people who are actually, and Max Schenk was on the show not too long ago too, and we talked about this, like people who are just prisoners in their own body due to mobility, inactivity, all of that, right? And you're seeing that eke, you know, younger and younger into societies. It's that thought of like, because I've never been trapped inside my own body. You know, I live a very active lifestyle, but that is so foreign to me, right? But a lot of people are.
I disagree with what the premise. The being trapped in your own body is an outcome of being trapped in your own mind.
Sure. Yeah.
And what you perceive you can do and can't do. And the truth of the matter is when you get, we're doing have a project where we're working with some doctors with some kids who are not morbidly obese, but super morbidly obese. So you're talking about, you know, a 15-year-old kid who weighs 600 pounds. And
whoa,
in their head, they can't change. When somebody is 50 pounds overweight, 100 pounds overweight, they go on a diet because they want to lose the weight.
Yeah.
And that they don't lose it in the time frame that they think they should, and they feel trapped. I can't affect my life. I can't affect it this way. Flipping that on its head, like the project we're dealing with these overweight kids, we have to change the way they think, but we have to find, for us, the idea was, let's have them find success in movement. Let's have them want to come to the gym and move. That is the success. So, that is, I don't work with adults. I work with kids. James says, kids are asking why they want to move around. Well, we won't, because it's fun. It's a way to engage in the world. It's because it brings us, joy to do that. And that's a hard concept to bring to an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old who has joy in their screen. I'm sitting someplace finding that. So, our gyms have to be playgrounds. Our gyms have to be engaging. We have to teach kids. We're not taking them there to work out. We're taking them there to move and to find joy in movement.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
don't trap yourself, your body in your mind or your body. You see yourself as somebody who can engage with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kid thing. Yeah, I'd agree too, Eric. The kid thing is, or the children, let's say 3 to 25. I still think if you're under 25, you don't have maximal brain development. So you're not an adult until you're 25, let's say. And we currently know that from how we see 20 to 25-year-olds behaving, which I was too, is like, how can you put a 22-year-old in any form of leadership, like, because you got a good idea online. Oh, well, that's good. You're not a leader. So let's say for the adult group, I would say that self-responsibility and individualism comes into that, about being trapped in your body, right? Because 25 years of age up, I would disagree with that fact, meaning that someone has to take some form of self-responsibility for what they're dealt with, right? And we don't need to get into the, free will, conversation based upon that. But when you're down below that, I say, again, that's why it's a cultural chaos, to try to crack that nut, because, just there needs to be just good fucking adults who understand. Honestly, like,
no, you're right. I mean, it's a simple statement,
right? Be a fucking adult, right? Like, and I don't need to go into the list of things how to be a fucking good adult, but because there's lots out there that you can look at. But common sense is lost, and people just don't recognize how you can influence. Because that 13-year-old he was talking about, they can't make big critical decisions or observations on, like, what does this all mean, right? To them, it's like, how am I going to fucking survive this peer nightmare, right? How am I going to survive in a school, right? How am I perceived when I'm trying to become a human, when I'm trying to pull away from the immediate family? Like, we can't even possibly understand the psychological turmoil that goes on inside that kid's head. So to propose an idea that you're going to move to, like, navigate better in society is like, that's like 7 layers too deep for him, so you need fucking smart adults. You need adults around who are just going to, like, partner up and help them with movement and give them that little nudge so they start getting these aha moments, right? Like self-confidence built out of those things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not just for the super morbidly obese, it's for any kid who's just learning how to navigate, and then they start seeing things, as we all know, that extend beyond the physicality into life. And that's when it gets powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So give me the nuts and bolts. Like, how are you guys, from the education point through, if people want to get engaged with what you guys are doing, what does that look like? What does the whole thing look like? What's that experience?
Can I jump in with what James did with us? James came out, we interviewed and decided to partner on this. And our goal was to be able to teach people about what we had done and make that spread. And James spent just a ton of time. I mean, I think it was 1.5, 2 hours a week for entire summer interviewing us, just like, what do you do about this? What do you think about that? And just taking our method, what we did and boiling it down to principles, which is really what is being presented in the PYCC.
Nice.
Of what we did. And I think the idea was, for us, was that, to be able to standardize outcomes, be able to see people accomplish taking kids and providing them with this experience for fitness, and expanding their physical literacy and expanding their ability to problem solve and provide their own movement solutions. This is a very unique. It's a very unique training, but we're dealing now with unique problems in our society. And what we saw 10 or 15 years ago with kids coming into the gym is quite a bit different than what you see now. You see kids now coming in who have lost what I say is just like standard human movement. You have a 12-year-old coming in who can't skip, who can't do a pull-up. Not only can't they do a pull-up, they can't hang on the bar. They can't bear crawl. They can't side shuffle. These are things that you have to be able to do to be safe in sport. That's what your goal is. And these kids have spent so much time not moving that it's like they've lost their library card to the Library of Human Movement. And so we've had to, our program over the course of 15 to 20 years that we've been doing has had to change to adapt to what's going on. So I guess the point back to the training was that this program, or our program, constantly changes, constantly evolves, but there's principles behind it that James really spent. I admire the amount of time he spent really interviewing us, really trying to figure out what we were doing, why we did it. And, there were hard questions, just like, tell me why, and coming down to some really concrete principles about how and what we were doing.
Yeah. And so the end, piece to make it right in the middle as to what we're going after, that avatar of a coach, right? That's our, let's think of it in a business sense, right? Mm-hmm. We have one market that we're going after. That's the adult fitness coach who really wants to have the principles to use and go and educate and teach fitness effectively for those out of diapers up to 18 years of age and beyond if they wish to do so, with things inside that course that will give them ideas on business, assessment, program design, culture, safety, the whole package, right? So if they go through that one product, on the other end, they should have enough where they're like, I can fucking do this, right? I can do this. Yeah. And that's what we're going down sinking with that one. We're putting all the effort into going after and finding those people. We're going to scour the earth to find the folks that can go through that and really make an impact. And that's where we're putting all of our energy. And then outside of that, we got a lot of great ideas of how to spread not only to that one coach, but to speak to the market as a whole, as to what that message is, to create some real critical thinking on what it should look like. And some of those things are the aforementioned programs Jeff was a part of. I think, long-term connecting tech and public institutions around fitness and fitness measurement and where this is and what is a system that's helpful for that. I could see us long-term being like an unbelievable API right inside of a school system because they don't want to handle the physical problem anymore. So they're going to need expertise in that area. And that expertise is not coming out of academia. They're not sending out all these phys ed coaches who are ready to rock and roll and deal with the current issues inside the physical sense out there. So, I can see us, moving towards that over time.
Yeah. What does PYCC stand for?
Professional Youth Coaching Certification.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned tech, and this may be out in left field, right? But I had a guy named Taylor Johnson who was on the show, and he's a performance coach for esports. Mm-hmm. Right? And I know that sounds crazy, but people can go back and listen to the episode. But it's true, right? I mean, it's okay. You look at anything that starts to get money or prestige, you start to see people get hyper competitive, right? Looking for any advantage possible, right? Happened in CrossFit in 2007, 8, right? So he trains these people, these esport athletes to become, the best they can be at their sport. Because, you go out to some of these tournaments, I guess, I don't know, I've never been to one, but there's like 15 million in a purse, right?
Yeah.
A team can take home, that changes these changes lives at an early age. And his point was, look, how do we take the technology, whatever it is that we're talking about, phones, anything with a screen device, games, how do we maybe meet kids where they are, right? Use that interest into something that we can now make into more physical literacy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just an interesting thought. And I would love to hear if that's something that's crossed your guys' minds.
Oh yeah. I sleep on that shit all the time. The conversation of esports, when you put sport to anything, there has to be like a deeper definition of sport, which is outside of that conversation, and to respect that guy as well. Like, it's not for this time, but sport for me without a physical sense of physical expression is not really a sport. And then it's like, well, my thumbs and my mind, it's like, well, now we're getting in gray areas. So I just define it over here to here in relation to that. I think at the end result, though, to answer your question, gamifying anything, which is what you heard in Jeff's language, allowing kids to overcome solutions to movement, right, can be embedded with technology so easily, right? That's just, in long term, although it sounds uncomfortable, but long term, we'll get more comfortable with it. Like, my feelings on it, right? If you don't mesh with technology soon enough, we're just not going to be ready for its overhaul. So I think some way of gamifying movement that allows and inspires movement solutions and to overcome movement solutions, and how that's measured. That's what I meant in terms of the tech movement connection. What that looks like, it could just be a ring. It could be a simple little thing. A kid walks into class and puts their arm out at the door, and a little clamp goes on their arm. It's like, beep, that's Johnny. Next kid, boop, that's Lucy. And they're just doing shit, and it develops like ideas on total movement time, power output, kind of things that they accomplish for the day. Like, if we don't think that's capable, we're missing the boat on it. So I think that's where it'll direct over time. Maybe another time too, I'd like to be on a discussion maybe with that guy in terms of number one, the lack of physicality in the definition of a sport, and then what's the long-term game plan for that, and then an area of interest, super area of interest, is clean sport. So gamifying and technology. How do you get better, and how do you beat the system? It's through medications, Adderall, psilocybin, LSD, etc. So are they measuring blood values and pre-testing for all those? And I don't think that's within WADA's guidelines when you're considering the sport. So, and how to test them, etc. for metabolites. So I'm of interest in trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
James, what do you think about the current attempts to bring technology into fitness? So you have things like Dance Dance and Nintendo Go or Nintendo Wii and things like that. And I had kids, I watched them do those kind of things, and it boils things down. Right now, what it does is boils things down to really simple movement. Okay, Dance Dance is not you're not really dancing. You're really just moving your feet up and down in a certain pattern.
Yeah.
And so to me, I keep coming back to, how do you mesh this technology with actual things that increase physical literacy? So climbing, rolling, grappling, throwing, running, and how do we do that? I don't know yet. I feel like what they've done so far in selling it is almost hindered the progress forward.
Yeah, because their intention is incorrect. Again, it goes back to them saying, oh, we'll get kids off their ass and they won't be fat. But that doesn't make it an admirable attempt of measurement at a period of time where we're just trying to figure shit out, right? And we're in this weird period of it. But I can give you an example of what the future may look like that could, maybe create a solution to that. And that's a vertical or a virtual reality headset that 15 kids put on in the class as soon as they walk in with that measurable device. And they each have to go through what is an obstacle course, an actual physical obstacle course in the gym, right? But they put it on prior, so it creates increased motor learning, intrinsic motivation, and connection to the physical task that's upcoming. So you take that super fat kid that can't shuffle, when they through virtual reality can see it, they can believe it. And then that's the first point on intention of them actually going through those solutions. Then that little thing on their arm, that may measure exactly like what they did, i.e. the steps thing, which some people get uncomfortable with, but it's movement. So I think we'll get there, and I think it'll be better measured. And I think our brains, Jeff, right now are actually not good enough to actually understand how that's going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you look at all the major institutions, and I think about this all the time, I think about it too much. But if you look at one that's ripe for disruption, it's the educational system overall, right? I mean, let's just put,
it's already disrupted, actually.
Yeah, well, it's going to be, it's coming. It's coming in a big way, right? I mean, because you talk about virtual reality, what's stopping someone from just being able to put on a headset, now walk through Egypt, right? Look at the pyramids, feel the pyramids, get a lesson that way. School is boring for most people, right? It bored me out of my fucking mind, right? At times, but you just had to do it. You learned how to sit down and just eat it, right? Physical education, like in the way I learned in school, was boring, right? And I think, I played a lot of sports, but for me it was, and I think it's, there's, so I'm just wondering, like, this is a great conversation, which I hope, my goal with the conversations like this is that people start thinking about this shit, right? Like, it's because it's coming no matter what. Mm-hmm. So how do we embrace it and, even talk about it even more? It's a fascinating idea. Yeah.
I don't know why I just thought about it, but we also don't know in 10 years that we'll be fighting off robots. Like, maybe we need to get in shape to fight off part humans. Like, how do you know? Well, it's not 10 years. Why not 20 years, right? So if you think you won't need to have like 1 billion people who are physically able of doing shit, it's until those lines get crossed that we don't think about those things. So that could be another thing to add to, like, why are we all getting fit? 20 kids lined up, 6 years of age for the eventual oncoming robots.
Yeah, Skynet. It's Skynet. Yeah.
It may inspire some kids through scare tactics. No, I'm joking, but I'm kind of not.
Yeah, right.
No, I think there is a mesh. There is a possibility to mesh. Brian Capelin is I would say probably the leading spokesperson on that uncomfortable area of the new wave of education, and what that's going to look like. And he, like you and I have talked, Eric, before, that it's almost like singularity or tech improvements and the exponential increases. No one's ready for the overhaul that's going to happen. And I don't know why everyone's not seeing that, right? Everyone's not seeing that. Totally unfulfilled people after college going, I don't use any of this shit for my life. And then this big wave of, like, you will not sit in a chair, you will work from home, you can travel the globe. Like, how is that connected to sitting in a chair for 26 years of your life, right? And obtaining information. It blows my mind. So the physical aspect of it, again, that's my point on the STEM score, right? If you can't, like, walk up on stage to get your STEM award, how useful is that, right? So you're going to have to be participating in physical movement.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you look at how, and technology is a big focus of this show, within the realm of fitness and health and wellness. And, the biggest advantage I see to technology nowadays is, like, let's give a gracious estimate that 20% of the population in North America has a gym or has a trainer, right? That's fucking gracious, right? Technology is how we get to the other 80%, right? And if you look at that, so that 20% is physically literate. What percentage of their kids are physically literate? And now we're looking at such a small percentage, right, of physically literate children. And I'm so curious. I mean, there's so many different ways that tech can come in and solve that problem. We just haven't seen how all the pieces fit together, right? I mean, AI will rule it all eventually. We just don't know how. But, the biometrics that you're talking about, nanotechnology, right? Everything that's going to be coming into play. How do we get to that other 80%? That's what
I think it's, well, I don't know the answer, but I think it starts with that, social structure of you're not being forced to, but you're forced to be educated on physical movement. If that makes sense. So it has to come in at the young ages, right? Being from responsible adults that are like, hey, fitness has to be like breakfast, right? And this becomes a cultural norm, right? Becomes a cultural norm. Why? Because these adults are teaching coaches to be like, hey, this shit's important, and I think secondary to that, the connection to measuring that through tech will result hopefully over time with a splur of it. But I think, Eric, the big nut to crack is the intention. Yeah. Because I think it's very easy to use tech and social media to go after kids are over fat, they're obese, no one's moving, they're on a screen. And everyone's just talking past one another. Yeah. But no one's like, well, why do they exercise anyways? Like, why don't you go after that? Right. And that's where we got to get people critically thinking about that question, I think.
How's that solution going to look like? What's that solution going to look like? Right now we have PE being taken out of schools in the young ages. So you have a teacher who's not necessarily interested in teaching physical education, and physical education now is mandated, 2 hours a week. Her physical education is go out and track and run. That's it. PE teachers, as James said, they're not respected, or they're not given the respect they should be in their environment. We had a young lady or a young teacher contact us recently. She wanted to bring us down to have this little conference for her and her peers, and she went to her district, and they said, "Oh, there's no money for enrichment for PE teachers. Every other group, gets enrichment." PE teachers, in what other academic or what other place in the school do you get a grade for simply showing up? In physical education, if you show up, you get a passing grade. I just showed up. I got to say, I'm coming to math today. I'm coming to advanced calculus, and I showed up and I got a C. That stuff doesn't happen. And what it says is we don't take physical education seriously within the confines of the school. So that's problematic. We need to be there to support teachers that are still trying to do this. On the other hand, I think we need to be training those people who are interested in working kids and interested in making a difference, interested in having a gym that makes a difference, to be there, to be the physical education for those kids who don't have it in school. Where can they go? This gym next door, this gym down the street from the school can run PE for you for 2 or 3 days a week. Yeah. And I think that's to kind of get outside of the technology idea, but physically, what are we going to do? How are we going to make a difference? How are we going to affect change? Well, we have to try to culturally try to get people to understand that within the confines of education, physical education is as important as other types of education. And if that's not honored, we need to be there and make a difference outside. So the kids that, where do the kids go? They can come to this gym, giant playground. They'll do everything that they used to do on the playground in these gyms. And we have to have trainers who understand the principles of how to affect the positive change in kids, and are creative enough to provide movement solutions or movement problems that kids have to think about. And how do I get over this wall? Yeah, how many different ways can you get over this wall? It's complex, right? I think a person I just listened to most recently talk about the complexity inside of a simple thing like back pain, right? You got to think of it as a process, not like a singular thing that's just like, pop, and it's done. It's a big time process. Yeah. So I think that has to be recognized. I think also, so we don't sound like we're just talking in our own bubble either, Eric, if you brought on like a psychologist, they would say it's like, well, this is how humans have evolved, and the parents are dictating behavioral habits, and their genes are telling them this is how they behave, and this is the crack. This is the nut you got to crack. And then you get the biochemistry. You know what I'm saying? And then you get the new age philosopher on, and they're going to be like,
they just have to be taught at a young age to be an independent soul and figure things out, and they'll eventually climb trees and figure out that avocados are the only thing that you should be eating. Or you talk to an engineer and they'll be like, oh, it's about structure. You talk to a mathematician, it's like they don't understand numbers. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm not dumb to think that, we're not biased in that thought. But my point is that if you extract all those things without movement, they all fall apart. All of them fall apart. So you can give me the smartest cat who sits in a chair at 18, he's having disease at 21. To house that brain that's so prolific, right? He's dead at 25. Why? Because he didn't move. Yeah. He didn't move. So it's all that balance of brain and brawn, and it has to come into that conversation. But I just want to make mention of that, to think that it's, push-ups are not the answer. But if you're giving an answer, I'll go tooth and tooth with you on how the push-up is the answer.
Awesome. So you guys,
or the pull-up. Sorry, the pull-up.
The pull-up, yeah. Let's full circle. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So where do people go? Right there, people are inspired. They want to learn more. They want to put intention behind this, not just words. Where do they go? PYCC.
Yes, absolutely. So go to our webpage, brandxmethod.com. Okay. We have a button for the PYCC for sure. Our Instagram page is really active. So, at the BrandX Method, it's something that people can look at, get a feel for what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do. That's for the BrandX Method.
Cool. Right
James, where can people come to see you?
OPEXFit.com.
That's right. You guys, thank you. It's always a pleasure catching up with both of you and to get you both on the same video. It was great. Made my Friday, and hopefully everyone else who's listening too.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Hey, fitness fans, don't leave yet. It's your host, Eric Malzone, and I have a quick favor to ask. Actually, 3 favors. So, number 1, if you're a fan of our show, I ask you to do something that takes under 3 minutes. Go to iTunes, please, and subscribe to our show. Please, please, please. It means so much to us. It's so important. And then give us a favorable review. We would really, really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means and helps us out. So I know it takes 2 minutes of your day, and it means a lot to us. So please do that. Number 2, go to our YouTube channel, our Fitness Marketing Alliance, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. Number 3, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've released, share it on social. That's huge. That's a big deal for us. And we put a lot of work into these episodes, trying to give you great actionable content for the fitness industry. So that would mean a lot. And that's it. So we have some big plans coming up for this show. I'll be talking about that in the next couple episodes, but thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from everybody. Eric, ERIC, at fitnessmarketingalliance.com.